How about now? What? There we go. Are we live now? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Live now. Awesome. Good evening. This is a Phenom made by Peopoly. Let's see, we've got 17 people. How many more? I want to give it a minute and see who else pops in, or do we want to roll right into it? Good evening. Good evening, good evening, good evening. So we have CFS in the chat. That is Shane from Peopoly. He will be here to help answer questions as we can, and hopefully Sean and Mark will be joining us. Sean is probably fashionably late, as always. And let's see. Yeah, everything looks healthy. We are good. So we do have a bit of latency, probably about 5 to 7 seconds it looks like, judging by my playback on my iPad. So this is the Peopoly Phenom. It's listing now for $17.99 at both peopoly.net and over at MatterHackers. There's links down below if anybody'd like to go check those out. If you want to, follow along with the specs or whatnot. This is a large format mSLA printer, and it has a print volume of 276 by 155 by 400 millimeters. Again, that's 276 by 155 by 400 millimeters. It's a 72 micrometer resolution, so it's very fine. That's the pixel size. And the vat will hold 1.8 kilograms, or roughly 1.5 to 1.8 liters of resin, depending on the viscosity of your resin. The current rated lifespan is 400 hours on the LCD, and replacements for those are $99. Much cheaper than some of the competitors in the smaller space arena for the larger 12.5-inch display. So that's the specs. Who's got some questions? I know Joel and Clayton, Uncle Jesse, both put out their videos this morning. I thought we could take some time tonight and field some questions and see if there was anything that they didn't cover that we might try to address. How does it blend? I'm not sure I understand the question. I would imagine if you were talking about like smoothies or martinis style, you'd probably need a very large blender with some very sharp blades. Yes, there are a total, well, there are 4 fans that I know about. There are 2 80 millimeter fans on either side, and there's 2 larger fans on the inside, all designed to help keep the LED unit cool, the UV LED. I do not know if it blends their VFX Forge. I do not have a blender that large. But it does print big things like the twin towers of pi here. Both printed pretty close to maximum size, and they are very detailed. Let me walk that around to the camera, and I will show you guys the detail on that if I can do it without dropping my wireless pack. So let me step in here. So Pi starts up there at the top, and hopefully this will focus. And it just goes all the way around these, all the way down to the bottom. So I printed both of these at the same time. Total print time on those was about 40 hours. How long from unboxing to first print? Wow, pretty quickly. You really just need to get it out of the box, plug it in, set it up, take all the foam out. So minutes. I mean, if you have the, I guess it depends on if you have the profiles pre-installed on your computer, or if you have anything ready to go. But it's very quick. There's no assembly or setup involved on it. Yeah, as Mark mentioned there, it comes pre-leveled from the factory, so you shouldn't need to level it much. That being said, you do want to make sure the unit itself is level. So if with a vat that large, if the machine itself, your countertop or your shelf isn't level, the resin will all slosh to one side or the other. So you do want to put cardboard or shims underneath the feet and make sure the unit itself is level if your counter is not. Thanks, Jacob. Yeah, Noob got that for me at Murph, I believe. Mike, the color change at the top and the bottom of these, it was because I was running low on resins. So I started off with the green resin in these, which you can see more at the bottom, and I just added basically gray resin and white resin to it to get enough to fill the print, which is kind of why the bottom layers came out more green. And if you can actually see the bottom of these there, that one's brighter green. That one had a little bit of the gray because it hadn't fully mixed yet. And as it went through the peel process, it mixed the resins together, and we ended up with this nice grayish green. I have not changed the FEP. I'm trying to keep up with the questions here. I have not changed the FEP yet. I did re-level it, and I'll quantify that. This is a pre-production prototype unit that I have. This is the same unit that was shown over at tested.com when Peopoly visited them for their interviews. So it was hard traveled, banged around a lot, and the LCD that was in it had a lot of time already on that. In fact, we did, working with Peopoly, we did some stress testing to see how far beyond those 400 hours that we could get away with trying to push the LCD before we started seeing spots or burn-in on it. And so, yes, I did re-level one time after replacing the LCD. I may or may not have been necessary, but it's an easy process. It's 4 screws, lower it all the way down, loosen 4 screws, I should say, lower it down to the build plate, let it sandwich, tighten the 4 screws up, and you're done. So I felt it prudent to do that after swapping out the display. Yeah, easy to level on a flat earth, again, unless your countertop isn't flat. The vat does hold enough for a very large print. However, you may need to top it off if you're doing not just a tall, but a really large print, and depending on how you hollow it. The most I've used in testing on a single print was probably about a liter, but I kept more, or a kilogram of resin, 2 bottles of the Peopoly size. But I always kept it topped off because I didn't want to take a chance of running it low. And discussion with BuzzFeed post any plans on tests. Yes, I've experimented with tinting a little bit by blending different resins together. I've made some ruby gem pinks, for example, by adding some translucent red to some clear resins. Not on this printer, but on the SL1 or other printers. I have not had a chance to play with the dyes yet, and that is on my to-do list, but I would like to get more information from the different resin manufacturers on what type of dyes are acceptable to use. For example, some of the dyes are alcohol-based, and alcohol is what we use to clean the prints. So I'm not sure if that's going to thin, if it's going to thin the resin too much or evaporate as it blends in. I don't know. I'd like to speak with the chemist before I start going down that path. And it looks like Shane already answered the questions on the LCD. Thank you. I'm glad the Moai videos helped you out. Those were a lot of fun to put together. Probably still some of my most watched videos today. So you only get 10 of these 40-hour prints before needing to replace the LCD. Currently, yes, the math works out to that. The 400 hours is an estimate, though, and it's relative to, maybe Mark will help field this one, but the 400 hours is going to be relative to the amount of UV light that you expose the LCD to. And by that, I mean how long your layers are, how much masking you have versus printable area. So I think the 400 hours is a conservative, safe number right now, but with more user data coming in as these things roll out, possibly Peopoly will change or reevaluate the numbers on that. But this printer is not intended necessarily for the home hobbyist. It's not meant to compete with your Mars and your other small form factors. It consumes a lot of resin. It consumes a lot of solvent to be able to clean your prints. So currently, so there is a little bit higher cost of doing business, so to speak, with a printer of this size compared to 5.5 inch like the Mars or the SL1 or a Shuffle or something like that, or Photon. It's kind of expected that somebody investing in a printer this large will also be able to keep up with the consumables for it. Kind of like we have the old expression, at least here where I grew up, you don't buy a Ferrari if you can't put gas in the tank. So I think that's the intent. And again, that $99 replacement LCD is cheaper than some of the 5.5 inch 2K LCD replacements for some of the other units out there. So pricing on that is very good. Okay, Jake, yes, it is massive. And more questions? Yes, I've tried Mean Green. Denatured alcohol is what I've found to work the best, but we can't buy denatured alcohol in California anymore. IPA is actually getting harder to source over 70%. You need a license for it now, again in California, because of the VOCs and that. I've tried Mean Green. I've tried peroxide-based cleaners and oxygenated cleaners. They seem to work well in helping remove some of the bulk resin, for lack of better words, away from your print to keep less of a film on it. But they don't have a solvent in it. And IPA, denatured alcohol, acetone, they're all solvents, right? That will break apart those resins to actually allow them to come off. So currently, until some of the more water washable resins come out or some alternatives come out, even if you're using the degreasers and the mean ingredient and the other ones, you still need to use IPA or denatured alcohol to remove the rest of everything. What I've been doing with prints for this is I've been using a cleaner made by Simple Green that's made for actually cleaning decks. It's a slightly bit more caustic cleaner. Still got a glove up and everything with it. It's not I don't say it's not eco-friendly, but as soon as it gets resin in it, it's no longer eco-friendly. But I've been using that as a first pass to get the bulk of the resin off the prints, followed by using IPA in a spray bottle, similar to what Joel was doing for larger prints, where I'll spray it on, use a brush to wipe it off, spray it on again, and then I will dunk it in a tank of water to rinse it off, and then I'll go back and do a second pass with the spray bottle and IPA if needed. Yes, breathing in California is illegal. Water causes pregnancy and cancer. That's about it. LCD replacement. Okay. Audio popping. Is my batteries going low? Take that out of the pocket. Is that any better? Let me know if I continue to pop. Back to LCD replacement. I can't really show you without repositioning the camera. The LCD replacement is about a 5-minute swap out job. There's 4 pieces of tape that hold the LCD in place. You just remove that tape, lift out the old LCD, disconnect the connector from it, the ribbon cable, replace the ribbon cable on your new LCD, pop it in there, and reapply the tape around the perimeter. The tape, it's like a cloth-backed electrical tape. I don't know what else to call it. Shane or Sean may have another word, or Mark, if he's still in the chat, might know the name of the tape that they're using. I haven't been able to find the exact thing here in the U.S. The tape serves 3 purposes. Sorry, I mentally distracted myself. One is it blocks UV light from leaking up around it. That's why it's black. 2 is it prevents spills from going down. If you do leak or have a vat leak, it prevents the spills from going back down into your electronics and hitting your LEDs and everything else below it. Friction tape, thank you. And the third thing is, of course, it secures the LCD and keeps it from shifting around. Bill, I would say it's probably similar to hockey tape. I was thinking gaffer's tape, but it seems to, even though it's cloth, it seems to have a little bit of waterproofness to it. I know gaffer's tape isn't necessarily waterproof because of the cloth backing on it. I'm not sure about hockey tape. Don't really have a lot of hockey here in Southern California. No, it's not gaff tape, Alex. It's very similar. It looks like it, but I think friction tape is the proper term for it. Any more questions? You guys want to see a close-up of the Doom mask? I can walk that around to the camera. This is one of the first things that I printed here. It was very little sanding except for where some of the supports were removed. It was coated with for finishing wise, I had coated it with a hammered iron finish, and that's where all of this texture came from that you can see in there, if it's focusing in and showing it. Followed by a chrome paint over the top, and then a black wash to try to get that worn kind of iron look to it. Need to come up with a way to strap it, but it actually fits very well. So that was fun. Yeah, Bill, I know we have 3 hockey teams in California, but I'm not a hockey fan. We probably only have 3 ice skating rinks in Southern California, too. Football and baseball, we got teams aplenty. A couple of basketball teams, I think. Soccer, American football, or soccer, EU football, whatever the rest of the world calls football, is getting big again. Yes, Alex. Shane got you there. Because this was a prototype unit, I did have to replace the LCD once. It's about a 5-10 minute process. It's very easy. And I didn't bring any of the other prints in. I just grabbed a couple of them here. Oh, thanks, Mark. A high temperature resistant Teflon tape. I guess Mark or Shane or Sean, can you guys find us a source for that here in the US? I don't believe it's something that I've seen off the shelf at like Home Depot or any of our, and I imagine Europe too, I don't know, and Australia and the rest of the world. Not forgetting you guys, but I don't think I've seen that off the shelf really anywhere. Perfect, Shane. Thank you. Alex, yes, thank you. It does some nice prints. If you were able to see the beautiful lantern that Joel did twice, and the prints that Clayton was doing off of it. You are a mod, Sean. Sorry, tape might be available soon for people. Sorry, Bill. Yes, thank you. It's been putting out really good results. You can tell when your LCD is starting to get worn. You know, you'll start to get a little bit of junk building up in your vat, and you'll see the quality of your prints degrade a little bit. So it's something to watch out for. Alex, yes, the quality of this is really good. I mean, especially compared, to the size. Post-processing on resin, you're always going to have some post-processing. And if you're doing cosplay or even technical parts or whatever, the finishing and the sanding of the resin is very easy. It's like working with Bondo. You know how easy it is to sand and finish and how smooth it can get, as opposed to the thermoplastics, which you can sand and stuff, but it's a lot harder to get. It's a lot more effort to get it as smooth as the resin. It's worth remembering that as we go up in size, your pixel size on your display is going to increase as well. So your pixel resolution on this is not going to be as good as a 5.5 inch with a 4K display. You will have slightly larger pixels, but it's not going to be very evident unless you're doing extremely detailed models, you probably won't notice it. And if you're doing models of that extreme detail down to, was it 0.78 micrometer or micrometer, pixel size, if you're dealing with stuff that small, you're probably going to be printing it on a smaller machine anyway. I hope that makes sense. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me scroll back up to see if I missed anything here. I have not, P3 post-print processing, I have not been using the anti-aliasing option yet. I'll be honest, G2Box is new for me. None of my other resin printers use it. Sort of. It's optional for the shuffle, but I've usually used Prusa Slicer with that. So it's G2Box is new for me, so I'm just learning the ropes and best ways to place supports and the different features and trying to dial the profiles. For now, I've just been working with the Peopoly profiles that they've provided as us for demos, and I haven't really ventured off beyond those yet. I want to get a little bit of time with those under my belt, before I start playing with anti-aliasing and other options. Dimensional accuracy, VFX Forge. Dimensional accuracy is pretty good. Again, you're going to have that pixel limitation, but it's pretty good. I wouldn't expect it to be, at least in the XY, I wouldn't expect it to be. Never mind. I can take that back. I don't know how to phrase that. So it's very good. You're going to get sharper corners. It's going to be more precise or as precise as an FDM print. I guess the only thing that can skew you off is if you happen to get a corner or a sharp edge right in the middle of a pixel. That could throw you off, but that's not that likely. And I think somebody had asked how long did that take to print. The hockey mask, I want to say I think that was a little over 30 hours. These took 40 hours. I've got a cheat sheet on the back of the printer. I actually keep track of each print and I kind of log it so I can tally up, keep an idea of how many hours I'm putting on the panel. So yeah, these were 48 hours. I'm sorry, 48 hours for the Tower of Pi, which is a full height. Now, to put it in perspective, I could have done probably 8 of these within the build volume of this in the X and Y, and it still would have taken 48 hours because your time is height-based. How long does it take to get to that top layer? Because every layer's done as a single piece. It's not outlined and traced. Let me see if I missed something. The slicer dither. I don't know the answer to that, Alex. It's standard G2Box, and I don't know the details on that. So, the hardware and the control board on this is actually the G2 control board. So it's nothing that was new or reinvented for this printer. The firmware, of course, was customized for the size, but it's not new firmware. It's running in several other printers that are currently on the market. No, there is no printing over Wi-Fi. You can use wired Ethernet. There's a port here on the side. There is a setting in the firmware currently, and I believe Peopoly is trying to make that go away, that allows you to select Wi-Fi, but there's no hardware for it. To start off, the antenna on a Wi-Fi chip is not going to work well inside of a metal box with all those fans and everything, internal to this. So Wi-Fi, no, is not an option. And to be clear, what G2Box does is allows you to actually push the file to a USB stick attached to it. So you can actually start your print over Wi-Fi. you can use it to slice directly to the unit, but you still have to go to the unit and select your file and hit go. I'm actually 100% for that. I know some people would prefer to do everything through a web interface and be able to hit go. I'm actually, especially with the size of the printer, firmly support having to force you to go over and select your print and hit start, because it forces you to double check that your build plate is secure, that you have enough resin in the vat so that you don't do what I did 2 nights ago and run out of resin midway through a 20-some hour print. Because I got called off to a service call and wasn't able to fill it up. So I personally think that's a good thing. John. Yeah, John, I think Mark from Peopoly had answered your question there as far as heaters. Resin, when resin is curing, it generates heat. So once you get past those first couple of layers, as it's curing, it's going to start heating itself back up just from the process and keep your liquid warm. But you do want to start it off, you know, I mean, you don't want to be fighting ambient air if you don't have to. It's preferable to keep it at least in a comfortable room temperature to get it started. And if it's really cold, you want to probably heat your vat or heat your resin before getting started. I've heard a couple of different solutions that people have for that. One is to use a baby bottle warmer. So just put your entire bottle of resin in a baby bottle warmer to warm up the resin. Once it's nice and good, you just pour it into your vat and get going while it's still warm. Or the second solution would be to run it under warm water, or take a bucket of warm water and dunk it in it and submerge your bottle of resin in that. I've also heard people say that they use a blow dryer just to heat it if the resin's already in the vat and not in the bottle. What do I service? I'm sorry, I'm not understanding that question, WF or either. I don't understand what you mean by what do I service. Oh, are you referring to me saying that I had to go out on a service call? Day job. I am an audio-video consultant and control system programmer. We do a lot of work. I'm not going to mention customers on a stream, but we do a lot of work with government entities. And when they scream that their projector's down or they're pushing a button on their touch panel and it doesn't work, somebody jumps in a car and services them right away before things blow up, literally. Juan Manuel, yeah, it is a good option if you are into printing big stuff. Just remember it. If you're just a hobbyist and you're just thinking about getting into resin, it's a big commitment. I'm not saying I don't want you to get one, but just be prepared to put gas in the tank. I'll just leave it at that. CJ Adams, that would probably work well. Some sort of an Ethernet bridge, a TP-Link Ethernet bridge or something that you can just plug into the wire jack if you really need wireless to your space. In fact, if you get one of the ones that has a little magnetic antenna, you could probably stick it right on top of the unit to be able to get around the big metal box. Sorry for the delay. Yes, I am in SoCal, specifically Orange County, but we service things kind of all over LA and all the way down to the border, actually all over the world. My next print, good question. I am unsure. It probably will not happen until next week. We're going away for the weekend, and I don't want to start a print that won't finish. But I am planning on trying to print a couple of rep box side panels on it in the Tech blue resin, the translucent blue. If any of you have seen me post on Twitter using that resin, I love that jelly bean look to it. So I actually want to try to print a couple of side panels if I can squeeze it into the build space and make it stable to do it by getting a nice diagonal on there. But as I was playing with that, it looks to be about a 48 hour print because it's going to go all the way up to the top, with the angles. So I want to wait till we get back from the weekend. To use an ultrasonic cleaner on your prints after the ones that fit. Not currently, no. It is not safe to use an ultrasonic cleaner with IPA, denatured alcohol, or anything that off gases like that, unless you take special precautions, i.e. a sealed water bath to put it in, or if you have a lab-safe ultrasonic cleaner. I currently use, I don't think you guys can really see it, but I've posted pictures on Twitter before, but I basically built my own washing station, similar to like what they use in an auto shop for parts washing. It's essentially, I got a big tub from the hardware store and a fountain pump with a hose on it, stuck that down in there, put some wire mesh on it, and that's what I've been trying with experimenting with the different cleaners, like the mean green and the peroxide-based cleaners or the oxygenated cleaners, to try to do the bulk remover. And then I move over to just an empty tray and a spray bottle full of IPA. Let's see. Inland Empire, awesome, out in the 808. Juan Manuel, you're very likely that there's going to be more and more coming out. I think a big driving factor of that is going to be resin prices, which seem to be coming down. I know Joel and Clayton both stress it. I will stress it again, as I've done in other videos. Make sure that you read the MSDS for your resins so that you know how to properly handle it. Make sure that you have the appropriate gloves. If you're sensitive to the smells or exposed to it too long, wear a proper respirator. Especially, again, your MSDS will tell you what you need as far as safety precautions. And if a resin manufacturer does not provide an MSDS to you on their website or publicly accessible, ask them for it. Email them, send them a tweet, message on Facebook, whatever. If they will not provide you an MSDS for their resins, my instant assumption is that it's cooked up in somebody's bathtub and I probably don't want to be using it. So as resin prices drop, consider that and make sure that you're still using quality stuff. John Jones, yeah, I had actually looked at the $80 Harbor Freight parts washer. I even had the 20% off coupon, was over there, waited in line, got to the register, and they said, we're sorry, we're out. So I just said, screw it, went back through the line, got a fountain pump and a piece of wire shelf, basically for like the closet shelf systems, and I built my own. Don't want to run IPA through that either, by the way, because it's an AC motor in those pumps, so any flammable liquids in those can ignite as well. That includes the Harbor Freight ones or any of the commercial parts washing solutions, again, unless they're specifically made, unless they're specifically sealed units and made for flammable liquids like that. Let's see. Alex, you will tend to see it starting to fade out, and you'll start noticing degradation on your prints. You can always fire up like a test pattern without resin in there, of course. You can fire up a test pattern, between prints. Create yourself an alternating cube pattern or something like that, and just run that print, and it'll flash the LCD on, and you can start seeing if there's hot spots that are where you have either stuck pixels or pixels that aren't turning on or pixels that aren't turning back off. Juan Manuel, awesome. I'm very happy that you find them useful and helpful. And white sheet on resins and settings. That's a good question. That would probably be one for Shane, as I think that's going to be his turf. Let's see, we've been going just about 45 minutes, so if we have any other questions, see if we can tackle those quick. Otherwise, we can maybe wrap this up soon. And my pleasure, Alex. That was the goal tonight, was to try to answer questions or provide the answers that weren't talked about on social media or weren't covered in the limited time format of Joel's and Clayton's videos. Wanted to be able to make sure people had the information they needed to make the decisions. All right, last call. We've been going 45 minutes, so last call. If anybody else has any other questions they want to know. Again, it is hella big. It takes 1.8 kilograms of resin in the vat back there. I think I have it leaning up so that we could see it. Ball screw, dual linear rails. Huge aluminum plate. The thing does not vibrate. It is a two-person lift unless you're built like a bodyguard. It is heavy. So make sure that you have somebody to help you assist it. Did I say bodyguard? Bodybuilder. Make sure that you have somebody, to help you move it if you can. As Joel and Clayton both mentioned, it is loud. So you probably do not want to be putting this in your bedroom or living room. You want to have a dedicated space for it, whether it's, your printing cave or something else. I run everything, as you can tell, out in my garage. Fortunately, Southern California, I've got the weather for that most of the year. Worst case, and if we get a very bad winter, I'll throw a space heater in here. And in the summer, I just crack this door behind me about a foot, open the door on that side, and I get a nice breeze going through. So, awesome. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And I guess we'll wrap it at that. If you're not subscribed to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. There are links in the description to both MatterHackers and to Peopoly Direct. If you're interested in picking one of these up, I do get a little bit off the top of those, so I appreciate you using the affiliate links because it helps feed my need for resin and filament and everything else. So that is much appreciated. And we'll see you next time on Practical Printing. Aloha.